Hey guys, how's it going? So today I'm going to be doing a updated Senate map prediction. So a lot has changed since I did my last prediction for the US Senate elections. I'm just going to jump right into it. And I want to first go over the states that I think are most solid for either party, and we'll start with the Republican Party. And the first is Alabama. This is a pretty obvious choice, but I'm also going to go along and go with the Georgia special election, and also I'm going to put Kansas in this category. So the reason that I'm putting these three, Alabama, we know is a very strong Republican state, along with Kansas. That's a little bit of a different story. Alabama has a Democratic incumbent, but any polling that's been done really ever has not shown Doug Jones anywhere near the lead, so I don't think that Alabama is really competitive. Georgia's special election, there's no polling that really shows Georgia as competitive for the Democrats. Some polls don't even show the Democrat leader going and making it into the runoff, so that would be pretty catastrophic for the Democratic Party in that race, and Democrats just aren't going to do well in a runoff election in Georgia as is. And then in Kansas, Barbara Bollier is the Democratic nominee, and she was looking pretty good if it was against Chris Kobach, but a different candidate won the GOP primary in the Republican Senate race, and polling right now is actually pretty close. Any recent polling done doesn't show the Republican candidate leading by more than 3 points or so. However, his name recognition is pretty low. I think as time moves on and his name recognition raises, he's just going to be much more competitive, and it's not going to go to the Democratic Party. That is my calculus for this. And then in terms of the Democratic Party, we have Arizona, Colorado. Oh, actually, the last Republican first I want to go over is Texas. Texas is actually becoming a little more competitive in recent weeks, with polling data showing it now in single digits, where it was pretty solidly in the double digits before. However, I do still think that MJ Hagar isn't going to be able to take over John Cornyn's seat. Moving over to some of the more blue states. So we have Arizona, Colorado, and actually North Carolina, for the Democratic Party in the likely column. So the reason that these three states are all in the likely column for the Democratic Party, North Carolina probably the most surprising out of all of these, they're polling very strong for the Democratic candidate. I haven't seen any polls recently that show Cunningham losing to the incumbent Thom Tillis in North Carolina, and also in Colorado and Arizona. Those states are less surprising. However, Mark Kelly in Arizona and John Hickenlooper in Colorado, both looking very strong. Mark Kelly looking extremely strong. I've seen him with close to a 20-point lead in some polls, so that is pretty remarkable. Now moving over to the lean column. So I'm going to put actually South Carolina, Montana, and actually Georgia, in the lean column for the Republican Party. So first off, South Carolina, Jamie Harrison, Lindsey Graham. Most of the polling that I've seen has actually been extremely, extremely competitive for South Carolina. I've seen some ties, some within a 3-point margin. That's the majority of the polls that are coming out in South Carolina. However, things have gotten more competitive, and I think that Lindsey Graham, just being such an established long-time incumbent, does have an advantage. In Georgia, the regular election, Jon Ossoff is giving David Perdue quite a run for his money. However, he was looking really strong at one point, and now it's kind of his lead is backed off in that regard. In the RCP polling average, he's still got quite a ways to go in terms of polling leads. However, it is possible he could very well go on and win. I think it is competitive. However, I just think that David Perdue is looking a little stronger at this moment. And then in the state of Montana, Steve Daines, the incumbent, versus Steve Bullock, the Democratic challenger. Bullock was looking very strong much earlier in the election cycle, so around May or June. He was looking very strong. However, now not many polls come out showing him in the lead. So we'll definitely need to see some more polling as time moves on, but for the time being, Montana is a lean. And in the Democratic category, the lean states would be Maine, Minnesota, and Michigan. So you're probably pretty surprised that I put Michigan and Minnesota in the lean, and states such as North Carolina and Arizona in the likely, and that's just because the Rust Belt has seemingly become extremely, extremely competitive in the last few weeks. A lot of polling has come out showing Minnesota as extremely vulnerable. I've seen an Emerson poll that only shows Biden ahead by 2. Tina Smith, the Democratic incumbent, only ahead by 3 points or so, and there hasn't been much polling done out of Minnesota, but all the polls that are being done have shown Minnesota is actually extremely competitive in the Senate election and also the presidential election. But the Senate election is what the focus of this video is on. In Michigan, Gary Peters is losing his lead to John James. So right now he does have a equitable lead as a state such as North Carolina in polling leads. However, I just saw a poll that showed John James in the lead. So I do think that Minnesota is going to be pretty contentious. Gary Peters just doesn't really have a large profile or name recognition nationally or in the state of Michigan that could help him pull him over the finish line and turn out voters. So I definitely think that he is extremely vulnerable. In Maine, Sara Gideon putting up a really good challenge to Susan Collins. Before I had this in the complete toss-up. It was one of my complete toss-ups, and now it's probably the most likely of the three lean states here. So it is looking extremely strong. Her polling lead, if it persists, I would put it in the likely category. She's leading right now by like 5 points or something. A pretty stunning margin for such a long time incumbent. And then the last state that we have is Iowa, and Iowa is probably the most hard to classify because right now it is pretty much a virtual tie if you look at the RCP polling average. But I do think that the RCP polling average skews a bit to the Republican Party, so that is why I'm going to put Iowa in the tilt Democratic column, because Theresa Greenfield still does have a virtual tie, but a pretty small lead in the RCP polling average, and I think that right now in the Senate elections, it is favoring the Republican Party in terms of the RCP polls. So I give Iowa to the Democratic Party. Actually, surprisingly, most pollsters and betting markets have Iowa going to the Republican Party, but I think just because Joni Ernst is really unpopular, not a very well-liked figure in the state of Iowa, and Theresa Greenfield kind of has this new energy to her, I think that she would be able to win. However, it is for sure the most competitive state, and it could truly go either way. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you later.